Hello, and welcome to my Management 371 final presentation. I chose Herb Keller, co-founder and former CEO of Southwest Airlines, as my effective leader of choice. I also chose Martin Shkreli, former CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals, as the ineffective leader for the purposes of this assignment. In the second half of the 1960s, a businessman and his lawyer were having dinner when an idea began to manifest: a low-cost interstate airline that would service only Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, Texas. Other airlines took them to court to keep them from operating the intrastate model. Only flying in the same state of Texas allowed this fledgling airline some leniency when it came to certain regulations. After lengthy court battles in 1971, Southwest Airlines finally took to the air in their maiden voyage. It was not until 1978 that Southwest Airlines filled the position of Chief Executive Officer with one of the most unique, influential leaders of our time. The businessman at the beginning of this was Roland King. His lawyer, who he was dining with when they formed the idea for Southwest Airlines, was a man by the name of Herbert D. Keller. This lawyer, who had zero experience running an airline, would take the helm as CEO in 1978 and fundamentally change the way we as passengers fly the friendly skies forever, in the way we as workers view leadership. What made Herb Keller such an effective leader? He was transformative in the fact that Southwest Airlines was the first low-cost carrier in the industry. They broke so many molds with the way they do business. Southwest forewent the traditional hub and spoke flight route model that was favored so heavily by the traditional air carriers, and opted instead to operate their flight plans much in the same way as the city transit buses operate, by following a route. They also brought about the quick turn at the gate. It used to take an airline about an hour between the time an aircraft lands at the gate before it departed on its next flight. Southwest Airlines, under the leadership of Herb Keller, pioneered the 15-minute turnaround time. Herb was also very charismatic. Herb would often just show up at Operations Center unannounced, just so he could socialize and interact with his followers. Herb treated his employees very well because he believed that if the employees were taken care of, they would take care of the customers, and that would mean that the customers would keep coming back. Herb was often said to have a servant's heart, meaning that he would often make time to serve the communities that he operated in. He would sponsor toy drives for the needy kids at Christmas. He would serve Thanksgiving meals to the homeless. Herb was an awe-inspiring leader. He spoke the language of the common man. He was beloved by many, especially his employees. On the other hand, Martin Shkreli is not exactly the anti-Herb. In fact, those who worked closely with Martin described him as very serious and held high expectations of his followers. He was often described as being very book smart, and that he would read science textbooks in a matter of days just so he could discuss the technical specifics with the scientists that worked for him at Turing Pharmaceuticals. Some that were close to him described him as a genius. Time would often tell a different tale. Geniuses do not go to jail for securities fraud. Martin became famous in 2017 for acquiring the production rights to a life-saving drug, Daraprim, and then hiking up the price of that drug by over 5,000%. He drew the ire of millions of people, including both candidates in the 2016 presidential election. Martin would argue that he was only raising the value of his company to shareholders, and those shareholders would praise him for it. The details of the drug price remain murky at best, but they are not the reason he is in jail. While Herb Keller displayed great emotional intelligence, Martin Shkreli did not. Shkreli often made headlines in 2015-2017 timeframe for his condescending tone he took with members of Congress, the Senate, the media, or whoever dared to interview him. His smirk became synonymous with greed and privilege. Martin would take to social media to brag about his extravagant lifestyle or to antagonize those who dared cross his path. He once even offered a reward of $5,000 for a lock of Hillary Clinton's hair. What he planned to do with it is unknown. Another time, he wrote a letter to his wife, to the wife of a former business associate, detailing his claims that her husband stole money from him and that he hoped to see her and their children living homeless on the streets someday. At a pre-sentencing hearing, a psychiatrist diagnosed Shkreli with a narcissistic personality disorder that borderlined on delusional. To this day from prison, Martin Shkreli claims that if he is released from prison that he will find a cure for coronavirus. These sound like the rantings of a delusional man. In closing, I would like to draw a comparison between Herb Keller and Martin Shkreli. Both men are responsible for transforming their respective industries. Herb introduced the world to low-cost airlines. Many people who thought they would never be able to afford to fly can now afford to fly on Southwest. Martin transformed his industry by showing the rest of us what not to do. Also, the three-ring circus known as Martin Shkreli has vaulted the publicity of drug pricing practices into the public limelight, and those practices may never be used again. Until we meet again, this is Tom Roberts, signing off for the final time for this class. Take care, and God bless.